had my blood panel done in August. My total is 475. My LDL is 365, but my triglycerides are 55 and my HDL is 109. So I got a 0.5 ratio. And so I come into the doctor, I'm 5 pounds lighter and I've got muscles and abs and I'm running 65 miles a week. And I tell him I feel really good and I've got more energy than I ever had. And I said, doctor, and I'm only eating meat. He said, have you seen your LDL? I'm going, yeah. I said, it's perfect. I said, it's absolutely perfect.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Happy Monday morning. Hope everybody's doing well. Today we have Alan with us today. I think, where are you located today, Alan?
I live in Pottsboro, Texas, in North Texas, by Lake Texoma.
Okay, very nice. All right, I spent about 20 years in Texas, so I'm sort of, that's probably where I spent most of my life, or the longest part of my life was in Texas. So Texas is a good place. Got some good brisket out there, and there's plenty of cattle running around. We have the largest cattle herd there. Well, we
try to eat as much as we can.
There you go. Yeah, get those critters out of the way. They're taking over. So let's just get into this here. So tell us a little bit about your background, where you kind of grew up, what happened, and where you are today, I suppose.
I was an athlete in high school, and I played some college football, offensive line. And so, nothing Division II. And it wasn't long after that, I started battling my weight. And I was dieting. I've been dieting since I was 23. So it's a battle.
Offensive linemen are big guys. I mean, where were you at? I mean, how tall are you? What college were you playing at, by the way? Just out of curiosity.
I was Southeast Missouri State University. They call it SEMO. But I was, this 40 some years ago. I mean, I was 213, 215, 6 feet tall, but I was really strong. Mm-hmm. I was probably one of the strongest guys they ever had on the team. But anyway, I got up to, over the years of yo-yo dieting, I got up to about 305 and morbidly obese about 5 years ago. Yeah. And then, all the advice I was getting was, low fat. Yeah. The standard American diet. And that was just, up and down. Now, 5 years ago, just too big, and I was having some problems, obviously, metabolically ill. So I just wanted to lose weight. And one night I just prayed, and the next morning I got up and decided I was going to lose weight. And so I just started in with MyFitnessPal, and I starved myself for about 7 months. I was cold and tired and hungry all the time. And I walked 45 minutes a day. Then I got up to 90 minutes. I lost the weight. I got down to 195, and now I'm at 205. But I'm 61 years old now. But it's truly that calorie counting is the wrong way to do it. I did it, but I was really disciplined in it. Yes, my metabolism was just shot afterwards. I was always dieting. So even 4 years, continuing 4 years on after that, I was just dieting all the time. A couple of years ago, I started running pretty soon after I lost the weight, because my son was a runner and an Ironman athlete. I wanted to run with him a little bit. So I started running, but it was just really difficult. You could run 30, 35 miles a week and you can't keep your weight under control. And you just wonder, because MyFitnessPal should be correct, It really doesn't work. So it's just a total misunderstanding of what calories are and energy needs of the, so I was training for marathons. Of course, everybody gets you into marathons. I got training for marathons, and it's just really hard to, train for a marathon on cabbage, chicken tenders, and you could barely eat anything to keep your weight down. And so, and all that, watching my calories and eating all those high fiber vegetables just started to give me gut issues. It's kind of like I was on a vegan diet, but not quite, developing all kinds of bloating and gas problems. Again, you just can't train. You just can't train at enough volume to be a decent marathon runner when you're eating chicken tenders and broccoli. It's just not enough. We started in our journey to losing the weight helped, obviously with a lot of things, I felt better, but it really wasn't sustainable. And I was really searching for something that was sustainable. And last summer in 2021, I was trying to run a faster marathon. I was running 40, 45 miles a week and got up to maybe 50 on a peak. And I did improve some, like 4% over my previous time. But again, I was just so exhausted and I was trying to keep my weight down so I could run faster. Yeah, I was just sarcopenic. Yeah, I had no muscle mass anymore, but I was just trying to keep my weight down. But I was just cold and tired and hungry and couldn't sleep. And my muscles, everything ached all the time. But during that time, my wife had a stroke, and we went through a process of trying to understand what was the best diet. And all the doctors and all the cardiologists and doctors and all the therapists that we went through for that, they sent us home with the standard American diet. They said eat right and exercise if you can, and we doubled down on it, the sad American diet. But we weren't probably the junkiest foods that can be eaten with the processed food, but we still had bread and pasta and rice and things like that, and potatoes. But then she was having migraines every 3 weeks, and those migraines had similar symptoms to a stroke, and it just scared us to death. And the doctors had all promised us that they would tell us what was the cause of the stroke. They really didn't. They didn't come up with anything. I just I'd run my marathon and I'd improve my time, and I'm just trying to contemplate what I was going to do from there, whether it was going to try to, in the back of my mind, I kind of wanted to qualify for the Boston Marathon, but I was, like 22 minutes away from doing that. It just seemed out of reasonableness. So, but late one night I was watching YouTube, and there was this cardiologist named Pradip Jamnadas. And he had a segment, a lecture on fat lies, and it was all about, how saturated fat was good for you. And it was a big lie, the Ansel Keys whole thing about how that was all wrong, and saturated fat was not the cause of heart disease. And he had a thing on lipids and some scientific stuff that he thought they were manipulating the numbers on statin drugs. And that he thought cholesterol wasn't the cause of people having heart attacks. And so just kind of it's almost like, we're in this cult, this carb cult, I call it. Suddenly you hear some truth and you say, well, have we been lied to all along? So what happened, I started binge watching him and some Jason Fung, and I happened on into your channel, but, at that time is a year ago, and the carnivore diet was a little bit extreme, seemed a little bit extreme. So we went keto about a year ago, and yeah, we even then, when I was at my goal weight, I'd lost more weight. But we started intermittent fasting, but that didn't help with the muscle. It really didn't, but it did kind of help with my training, because I could start recovering a little faster, and I incorporated more training during the off season. But for my wife, her migraines went away immediately as soon as we got off sugar and processed food. So sugar and processed foods and seed oils went away. And I started incorporating more beef in, but still I was all concerned about the calories. And so, but then about 7 months ago, I challenged a family member to the beef, butter, bacon, and eggs. And so, because he had some autoimmune issues, and I wanted to try it, but I wanted to try it with someone else. So we did, and it just changed everything regarding training for marathons. I actually probably gained 10 pounds on carnivore, but I was already, kind of sarcopenic and at my goal weight. But I found that, the biggest things for me were just the recovery. I call it the fountain of youth, the carnivore diet. It's just wonderful how you feel. The recovery time just changed everything. I can get up and run. I watched some coaches on marathon training on YouTube, and they say when you get older, you got to go back to 4 days a week. You got to train less so you can have more days of recovery. Well, I actually went from 5 days a week training to 6 days a week, and I increased my miles. I went from 1,700 miles a year to 2,500 miles a year. So about a 40% increase, 45 miles to 65 miles a week. And in Texas heat, that's not too bad. especially for an old college offensive lineman. No, I was able to train a lot more and just felt better. And you get more sleep, and you just have this constant energy level. And of course, I stopped being cold and stopped being tired and stopped being, the gas went away and, digestive issues went away. And just life gets so much simpler and better when you just eat meat, and you finally cutting out those last 20 to 30 carbs, especially the fiber, was just destroying me. So I felt like, well, hey, I need to get stronger. And I just started with a few push-ups, like 10 push-ups and a few squats, no weights. In like 60 or 90 days, I was getting abs. I was doing some planking. I measured myself. I gained like 2 inches on my chest in like 60 days. And my legs, around my quads, gained an inch on each leg. And I gained an inch on my glutes and an inch on each arm. So I just got stronger. And I ran my first ultra marathon yesterday, and it was a 50K, but I was running, and I run without a shirt, and I could hear one of the spectators. They said, "Hey, look at the guy with all the muscles." Little did they know, 6 months earlier, I was a sarcopenic. You could have made me out for any vegan, sarcopenic vegan in the world, but it doesn't take very long, and there's a body transformation. It's just fabulous, and you can build lean body mass so quickly. So I'm up to like 100 push-ups and 100 squats and some planking, and I bought a couple of dumbbells, and when I can train like 13 hours a week running and 3 hours a week strength training in the Texas heat for an old guy like me, I mean, it's just the fountain of youth.
Let me just interject and ask a couple things here, because you said you were up to 305, and then you did the chicken broccoli thing, got skinny, lost weight, felt tired, cold, hungry all the time. Eventually found a ketogenic diet, but still, even with a ketogenic diet, you still were kind of not have as much muscle as you wanted. And then you went carnivore, and because I'm wondering, why weren't you lifting weights and training before? And it sounds like you just didn't have the recovery capacity. And so as the recovery capacity got better, you were able to do these things. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it really is. I was doing a lot. Of course, Jason Fonge's a great guy, and his deal's on fasting. And my whole thought process then was just to be smaller and run faster with less weight. And I wanted to get down to 185 so I could run faster. And so it was just about the weight. Yeah, I just didn't have any strength. And when you're doing all the fasting and I still wasn't putting in the calories the type of nutrition that I needed to be strong and to have the energy that I needed for those extra workouts. So just going from keto to carnivore made a lot of difference as far as my energy level and my want to, because I know just doing keto, I wouldn't have been able to train, during that peak training period for the marathon that I had in October, where I ran a 3:43 marathon, qualified for the Boston Marathon. I was just thrilled, improved my time by 11% in 1 year.
Yeah, that's, for those that don't know, that's a huge improvement, particularly when you're, like you said, you train for quite a while and you're kind of coming up against the wall, and it's even a 1 or 2% improvement is significant, over a period of time. And so to jump that much is, like if you're starting out and you're running an 8 hour marathon where you're kind of walking, then it's easy to improve 20 minutes. But once you start getting down there, it gets tougher and tougher. And you were at a heavier body weight too. Is that correct that I'm hearing?
Yeah, I was actually, probably year to year, I was about the same. I know I went to my doctor's appointment. I was 4 pounds lighter with the carnivore diet compared to when I was struggling with pre-keto. Because I ran my marathon a year ago pre-keto before I understood all that. I was still starving myself. But I was actually on the carnivore diet. I weighed in 4 pounds less than that. So I was able to control my weight. From the keto, I got way down really too thin, probably for my body, with my bone structure and stuff. I just can't see I just can't see plants ever being a big role in my life because I just feel too good. My performance, I listen to a lot of the performance athletes, and some of them think that they just have to have the carbohydrates to train. And I really don't. I mean, I train fasted every morning, 1.5 hours to 4 hour runs every day, 4 or 6 days a week, excuse me. But I feel like I could run 7. I don't have any sugar at all. And then I'll eat a couple pounds of meat and be good for the day. I'm never hungry. This whole thing, carnivore diet, other than the training, I mean, for the training, it's just wonderful. And until you experience it, it does take, I think, probably several months training your body to just rely on that glucose that you make. But I was really, really adamant. I didn't add any carbohydrates in all summer. I just wanted my body to just rely on making itself. And, when I got to the race where I qualified for Boston, I mean, I ran, 3 hours and 43 minutes with a heart rate of 90% of max on average. Took a few of those gel packs during the race, but I couldn't really tell it really helped. I kind of listened to Zach Bitter.
Mm-hmm.
He talked about how he reduced the carbs during his peak performances. I think I had during that race about 40 carbs per hour, so like 5 of those gel packs. Again, I couldn't tell that it helped so much. Then I ran another marathon a month ago, and I ran a slower pace, but I ran about 80% average heart rate. I didn't take any gel packs, any sugar during the race, and I felt fine. Yesterday, I was running my first ultra, and I took a few gels because I wanted to make sure I could get those extra miles. Your first ultra, you just don't want to bonk. I don't know that they helped me either. I took them, but I just can't tell that they really made that much difference in my run.
Yeah, I know a number of distance runners, including ultras, guys running 100-milers that are doing it without any carbs at all. So
yeah.
I mean, there are people that are doing it for sure, and so you just have to kind of see what happens when you're doing a ketogenic diet. What did that look like for you? Were you cutting yourself low on protein? Were you eating a bunch of keto products, or what was it looking like?
Well, we started out, whole food. And so, with my dieting practice from the past, I knew what calories were lowest. And so, a lot of rutabagas and, green beans and broccoli and cauliflower and just stuff that has hardly any nutrition in it. But I try to stay lean on the meat, pork loin and chicken breasts and things like that. But it gave us the ability to add in more beef, which I did some. But then quickly keto leads into the keto desserts. And that's, you start doing that. And then it becomes about how to make fake dessert, which aren't very good anyway. That all kind of feeds on your sugar addiction, your carb addiction. And the carnivore diet changed my taste buds and eliminated my sugar addiction, my carb addiction. And that's really such an impactful thing. People don't realize how addicted they are. And it changed everything for me. Now I really don't like chicken. It's just not fat enough. And I used to eat a lot more fish because I'm a fisherman. Fish I'll substitute for eggs sometimes, just because I've got it. In the morning, I'll have a little fish and butter and then some beef. But it's hard to get away from that low fat, high fiber, low calorie deal. And listen to you guys like you that say, hey, just eat the beef, and eat until you're full and your body will take care of itself. And it really does work that way.
Yeah, let me ask you about that because, without the fiber in your diet, people say, well, you can't have a bowel movement. You're going to be constipated all the time. I mean, several months into this, any issues? Are you doing okay with your GI stuff?
Yeah, it's a lot better. It was trained a year ago. I've kind of got my own scientific study of myself from a year ago, prior to the carnivore diet and to this year, because I had, I had blood in my stool last year during my peak training periods because I was just eating so much fiber, but I just struggling with my weight. This year, when I got on carnivore, it immediately cleared up, even much better than the keto because I got rid of all the fiber. And so I'm not really having any issues. I mean, I was going, 2 to 3 times a day with the old diet. Now I'm going every 2 or 3 days now, because I'm really clean on, I guess what we'd say, I just eat a lot of beef and eggs. And so,
yeah, let's talk about what you're eating. beef and egg. What does a day's diet, a couple of days of dieting look like for you? Are you focusing on grass finished beef only? Are you focusing on a lot of organ meats? Are you focusing on high protein or low or higher fat? What does your sort of deal look like?
Initially, I was eating a lot of meat. That first 30 days, you eat a lot because I just felt malnourished. And I was eating some liver at that point,
Mm-hmm.
but just like 1 or 2 ounces a day. And I like liver, but for the last 90 days, I haven't really been eating it. And so I don't really see the need for it. But typically, go for a run, come in, eat about a 20-ounce ribeye. Usually put some pork belly on or bacon, maybe 6 to 8 ounces of that, and then 4 or 5 eggs, and that'll do me for all day. And then in the evening, I usually stay on about an 8-hour window, 8 hours fasting, 8 hours feeding, and I'm not hungry for lunch. I usually eat about 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, not hungry for lunch, and then in the evening I'll have another ribeye or another steak of some sort, or we alternate with some really fatty hamburger, 73%. And it'll probably be about a pound and a half. So during my training, I'm eating about 3 pounds, maybe 3.5 pounds of meat. When I'm not training, I can cut it back to 2 pounds pretty easily.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, you figure out your body, you're feeding what your body needs to do. And it sounds like you're relatively higher fat. Looking 70-75% fat sounds like from the foods you're describing potentially. With keto, a lot of people will say cravings are still there. And that's why they try to substitute. They eat all these artificial sweeteners and all these desserts and things like that. How do you, does your craving sort of have they changed?
Oh, just dramatically. I mean, carnivore diet makes you look at food just differently. The taste buds change and the cravings go away. And so that, for me, just being hungry all the time for the last 5 years was just always hungry. And so you just can't have a little bit of that stuff. I mean, if you have it today, you're going to want some tomorrow. And so, yeah, it changed my cravings. I had food addictions. I mean, I remember when I prayed 5 years ago, I was praying about my food addiction. And, and my wife even told her doctor that, before she had her stroke, she goes, "I'm addicted to sugar." And he goes, "Why?" And he didn't offer anything. I mean, he had nothing. And we were even in the doctor with it, about about a month ago. He was reviewing our blood tests and stuff, and he still sent us home with the sad American diet. Still after we've made all these improvements.
When you say the sad American diet, are you referring to the dietary guidelines recommended diet? Are you because that to me is, the sad American diet is mostly processed food and junk and sugar and stuff like that. I don't think that's a food guideline diet, but nonetheless, I can't imagine doctors can go home and eat donuts and cookies and things like that. Is that?
Yeah, well, I call the sad American diet the food pyramid,
okay. Right.
Which really doesn't promote sugars, but it doesn't eliminate it either. We weren't doing a lot of fast foods or anything like that. Yeah, I mean.
So it's interesting because on keto, assuming you're not eating a bunch of keto garbagey products, it's some animal products and maybe berries and a lot of leafy green vegetables, and that used to be a big proponent there. And of course, obviously, higher fat. Some people would say, well, why not just keep eating vegetables and keep it balanced and it's not going to hurt? Do vegetables actually have a negative impact on you in a way? You mentioned the fiber was messing up your guts. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and I just think all of that just prevents your body from absorbing the protein and fats that you need. Mm-hmm. And the other problem with keto is that you concentrate on that stuff. I mean, it's that whole mentality that you got to eat your fruits and vegetables, and you really don't. And when you focus on that, you turns your focus away from the nutrition, the fats and the proteins from the beef and the eggs. And so when you turn away from all the vegetables, you turn to the good thing. And that's where the impact happens. Plus, I do think that the vegetables and that fiber, I don't know what you call it, Shawn, if it's anti-nutrients or, that fiber, just when you eat that stuff with meat, it just prevents the absorption of the proper food, I guess.
Let me ask you, obviously, you're wearing a shirt that says Meat Militia on you. So obviously, you're not shy about this at this point. I mean, when you walk out in public and you got a shirt on, it says F vegetables or something like that, people notice that. So I assume people around you have noticed you've been on a carnivore diet, have been exposed to it. What's been the response?
Yeah. I mean, I run in my neighborhood and there's five in the last few weeks. There's just 5 guys are out walking with their wheat bellies and their dog and their wife, and they can barely walk. And they're not just a few years older than me, and I run by them and I say hello, and they say, boy, I wish I could do that. And there's so many people. I mean, I just love people, and I just want to help them. And I just stop my training and I say, brother, you can do this. They said, well, I got bad knees. I said, well, your knees will get better, but you've got to eat meat. And I just tell them that. And they just look at me like, it's just so strange. But, in the grocery store, in my neighborhood, in my family, and before we get done with this, I hope you tell everyone here that, this guy's not crazy, so that whoever listens to this knows that Alan's not crazy. But people want to be that way. They want to be better. And they just don't know how, because again, it's this cult that we've been in. We've been kind of lied to by the universities gotten the food process, big food and big pharma has got to our universities, and it's filtered down through the doctors and just everyone. I mean, it's just permeated our whole society, and it's almost like you have to wake up. But no, you get resistance. I mean, people in our church, and I say, they sit there, in our church, we have a Bible study, and they have 5 boxes of donuts in church, and all of our parishioners are just sick. They're overweight, and they'll sit there across from you eating their donut, and then they'll tell you all their health problems. And I'll say, well, you can get better. Just quit eating donuts and start eating meat. And
I'm not the world's best Bible scholar, but I don't remember them talking about donuts and Twinkies in the Bible. I mean, they certainly were slaughtering a lot of animals and eating meat then, but I mean, maybe you just kind of go at it from that way and say, this is kind of what we're designed to eat, guys. But yeah, I think it's interesting because you do have a lot of people in the church, and many of them are morbidly obese, including many of the actual the pastors and the other folks that work there, and it's kind of I think you got to be an example to be a leader. You should be an example, and that's not a good example in my mind, regardless of how nice you might be. Yeah,
I've got 8 grandsons and 2 granddaughters, and I'm just I'm telling them, I said, they're all getting into their sports, wrestling and football and things like that. And I'd say quit the sugars, eat the meat, lift the weights, and they can see grandpa, grandpa's doing it. And so look, it really is for everyone. People don't think it is. And I applaud you, Shawn, for what you're doing and the risks that you've taken with your career. Just fantastic. And it really set an example for me. I mean, it's the right thing to do. Cut back on the plants. I don't really have any problem with people eating a few plants if it's not hurting them, but really there's just so much that is wrong with our health and our society. And I just would love to help them as much as I can.
Yeah, I failed to ask you. You said grandpa with 8 grandkids and all this. How old are you right now?
I'm 61.
61.
And,
okay. And you're walking around doing push-ups, you got abs, and you're running marathons. Good for you. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And the rest of the rest of your family, are they are they experimenting with carnivore? Are they looking at you on maybe this isn't so bad for me too? How's that working?
Yeah, I've got my daughter and son-in-law are incorporating a lot more meat. They understand it. And my daughter had cancer a couple of times, and she thinks it was the sugar. And in their 30s, getting 2 types of cancer. And so she understands it, and they're doing more. It's hard with a family, they say that. And then my son, one of my sons, he saw me qualify for Boston. He didn't think his dad could do it, and he's an Ironman guy. He used to be until he started having so many children. But he said, I'm going to start eating more meat. And but no, it's every one of them has to kind of come to it themselves. But I'm sure I've already influenced a lot of people. I mean, I know I've got about 20 people that have tried it as a result of just me talking to them about it. So.
Yeah, good for you. And it is. It's just every one person is going to make a difference and impact several people's lives. And it's just, as all of us are aware here, this continues to grow and expand. I mean, because there's nothing that speaks like results for sure. All right, so here's a question. So cholesterol, you're going to kill yourself with a heart attack because you're eating all the saturated fat. What are your thoughts on that? Cardiac function, better, worse? Obviously, you're running a better marathon time, so one would presume cardiovascular function is actually better. I mean, that makes sense, and there's a lot of things that support that. But I mean, are you concerned about LDL cholesterol going up, or has it gone up, or what are your thoughts, or have you even checked?
I've checked. I had my blood panel done in August, and my wife had hers done in recently, and we're both sky high. I mean, my total is 475, my LDL is 365. Yeah. But my triglycerides are 55 and my HDL is 109. So I got a 0.5 ratio. And so I come into the doctor and I'm 5 pounds lighter and I've got muscles and abs and I'm running 65 miles a week. And I tell him I feel really good and I've got more energy than I ever had. And I said, doctor, and I'm only eating meat. And he said, have you seen your LDL? I'm going, yeah. I said, it's perfect. I said, it's absolutely perfect. I said, look, God made us. He made us amazingly, fearfully and wonderfully made, the psalmist said. And we're made such that the LDL changes based on what we eat that day or the past week and, our body style. So if it didn't, we would be a wreck. And so it's just amazing. He wanted to give me the statins and wanted to give me the injection. And I said, no, we're not taking it because of the side effects. And I said, I'm not worried about it. I said, I'm healthier than I ever have been. And I said, when I weighed 300 pounds, you didn't prescribe statins. So how come you're prescribing statins? You didn't prescribe statins when I was fat and sick. And now that I'm healthy and strong and lean and fit, you want to give me statins? You're worried for my life. I said, it just doesn't make any sense. When we were in for my wife's appointment a week ago or so, I just asked him, what's cholesterol anyway? And he couldn't answer it. And he said, well, we just treat the numbers, and he'd asked me, well, aren't you B12 deficient? And I said, well, no, vegans are, but I'm not, so he just didn't know.
Well, why would you think you're B12 deficient? That makes no sense. If anything, you're going to be super efficient on the B12 number, at least based on what I've seen. So it's an interesting question because, there's a lot of people would say, hey, a total LDL cholesterol plus 400 plus is a significant concern. And yes, you've got these other risk factors and everything else. You're lean, you got muscles, you're running marathons, inflammation, I'm assuming is down. Blood pressure, I'm assuming is normal. All these things are looking good. And there's that one outlier. It's like, what do we do with that? So what about imaging? Because that to me, that seems like at least a good bit of information to know. It's like, is this LDL cholesterol going to kill me? You say no. Many people say no. Some doctors say yes, it is. And then you could say, well, let's get some imaging and let's answer the question. Am I developing cardiovascular disease or am I not? I mean, what I would say, VO2 max is up, blood pressure is down, lean muscle mass is up. All those things point away from the development of cardiovascular disease for sure. And so it's one of those things. It's kind of an interesting thing. And I'm not, like you do whatever you want to do, but I mean, that's when I'm asked that question, I say, well, just get some imaging and see how it goes and kind of track that over time and do what makes sense to you. I mean, it's everybody's, like you said, it's your own body and you have to live in it and you have to live with the consequences of that. And if you were to go back on a low fat diet, maybe take a statin or a PCSK9 inhibitor, you might feel your quality of life goes down significantly. And it's like, well, what do we care about, my quality of life or a lab number? Right. So it's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. That I immediately, I was ready for him. And I said, look, doctor, I said, I'll take a CAC and get some imaging and because I said, are you worried for my life? And he goes, yes. But he never ordered the scans. And we went back in later and, he just finally said, well, your HDL's up because you're running a lot. And I said, well, what causes cholesterol to go up? And he goes, diet. And I said, well, the American Heart Association just came out and said saturated fats are not correlated to heart disease. And I said, if saturated fats causing my LDL to go up, and you say LDL is causes heart disease, then shouldn't those be connected? But he doesn't have an answer for that because I don't think anyone's ever pressed him on the question. He said, I just treat the numbers. And you got high cholesterol numbers, you either get the pill or the shot. And at some point, he didn't order the scans. I mean, I said, I'll take them. But he wasn't concerned enough about it to order the scans for me. So I'd be interested. I'm not concerned about it at all. I actually think whatever I've got on the scan, it'll get better with Carnivore Diet. I'm convinced.
Well, like I said, and I'm glad you feel good. And like I said, I think, and we'll have more data coming out. I know Dave's Feldman studies in process of being done. So we'll have some more data that shows that you would fall in this lean mass hyper responder cohort. And he's got some intermediate data that's suggestive of it doesn't seem to increase risk of cardiovascular disease, although that's far from being fully published. So it's still kind of speculative in a way. But again, even at the end of the day, I always tell people at the end of the day, it's your body. You're all going to die of something at some point. And who's to say if I want to have a better quality of life for how many years I have left? Maybe it's 10, maybe it's 20, maybe it's 30 years. And maybe this is going to reduce my risk for neurodegenerative diseases or cancer or anything. And it's still, we have this sort of right. No one gets to tell us what we're allowed to die of, right? I mean, it's kind of a crazy thing, right?
Yeah, doctor, I'm going to die. I know, and I know where I'm headed after that. But let me tell you, I've decided that plants are no longer going to be a factor in my life, and I'm not going to have chronic inflammation like I had. I'm not going to have my plantar fasciitis and injuries. I'm going to die, but I'm going to die strong, lean, and fit. Yeah. And everybody else is going to die fat, sick, and miserable.
Well, yeah, we see a lot of those folks that end up in the hospital for sure. I mean, if you go and you just see an enormous number of people that are suffering from obesity and metabolic disease, and I mean that fills up most of the hospital, quite honestly. And it's
I'm going to take my air fryer to the nursing home, brother.
The goal is to avoid the nursing home. Don't end up in the nursing home. Stay strong and fit, and till the day you go out. Hopefully that's the goal there. So what as far are you? I mean, you're not like calculating and tracking. You said you did that for years and it was just a pain. So you're just eating when you're hungry, you eat. When you're not hungry, you don't eat. And when you're training more, you get hungrier, so you eat more. Is that basically it?
Yeah, that's just what I've noticed. I mean, I don't really weigh myself much anymore. I kind of know. You kind of know after you do it for a few months, a 20-ounce ribeye and some bacon and eggs works in the morning. And if you get a little hungry about noon, I eat a cookie. I eat a meat cookie. It's a leftover hamburger. And, I eat some leftover fish or something. But it's all good. And then, so I just know, you just don't know what hunger is and satiation is until you've tried the carnivore diet.
How has this, because I don't know if you mentioned this, but was there an impact on mental health, cognition, mood, just any of that mental performance? Did you notice any difference? Yeah,
I'm a CEO of a bank, and that my employees notice I'm calmer. And so I have a more even mood and things don't bother me nearly as much as they used to. And so that's a good feeling. I mean, the same amount of stuff happens in my life that happened a year ago, and it doesn't upset me as much. But I also, recommend I don't use Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, and I canceled my TV subscription. And ShawnBaker YouTube is about all I watch on. And so, yeah, I mean, I've done a kind of a holistic thing. I got rid of all the outside information that comes in, this nonsense that just meant to provoke you. And I just focus on, I meditate in the morning. I read the Bible in the mornings, but hey, here's a good one, Shawn. I mean, I teach the Bible at the local juvenile detention. And I just asked the kids, I said, how many of you boys are ADHD and bipolar? And 80% of them raised their hand. Mm. And they're just feeding them garbage at that place. And I just tell them, I said, look, guys, when you get out of here, just eat meat and you won't be sick anymore, because you wonder why these boys are in there. They're 13 to 17 years old, and they got all this mental stuff going on. Sure, a lot of them lived in bad neighborhoods, but that's, because you live in a bad neighborhood doesn't mean you have to be in juvenile detention, but they're mentally sick.
Yeah, I mean, that is something that needs to be discussed more. I mean, it is really tragic, the amount of mental illness that we have in society today, and it 100% is related to nutrition. It may not be every cause, but it impacts all of this stuff. And it is very sad to see these guys living on, institutional food, which is going to be processed carbohydrates, low-fat slop. I mean, that's what they're given, I'm sure, to eat day to day in those juvenile detention centers. And it's just not helping their mental health. It's if anything, it's making it worse. And so, yeah, it is absolutely devastating what we're seeing. And then when you have everybody that's mad and angry and anxious, they do things that aren't good. And then that just makes the situation where, like you said, life is always going to happen. It's how you're able to cope with it and respond to it. And if you can't cope with it and you do something kind of stupid in response to it, it just makes your life worse. I mean, clearly it does.
Yeah. We had a special program for Veterans Day for them. The veterans put on a program, and they had a special meal, Coca-Cola and pizza. Mm. And I walked up to the director of the juvenile detention center. I just walked up to him. I said, "Are you trying to kill these guys?" He goes, "Well, they don't get Coca-Cola very often." I said, "Well, that's good." Did you bring in a brisket?
Smoke a brisket or two. Heck, that would make them happy. I mean, I don't know many people that are unhappy to get a nice, obviously it costs a little bit more, I guess. Well, the brisket's not that bad. I mean, if you cook it yourself, it's $4 a pound, something like that. You can cook a brisket for that and feed a lot of people for sure. As far as because it's interesting, talk about this marathon performance just going up. I mean, would you say diet was the biggest factor for that, or or was it the strength training? I mean, do you think, or the both combination, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I think obviously all of us got to contribute to it. If you're a stronger runner, you're going to run better and longer. But for me, the diet made the most impact, from what I can tell. Because without the diet, I probably wouldn't strength train. I'd just been starving myself. I wouldn't have trained 65 miles a week for 10 weeks in a row in the heat of Texas, right? I wouldn't have done that. I just couldn't have done it. And so because of the recovery and the energy and the strength that you get, and just the body transformation is phenomenal. I would lay a lot of, you can say, yeah, sure, you're stronger and you ran more miles, but I couldn't do those things before, Shawn. Mm-hmm. I just couldn't do them.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's what I say. I mean, you talk about it. Well, I mean, if over the long haul, you're training for a marathon, the more you can train, the better your recovery, the better your performance is going to be on the day of the race. And, you may say, well, I can get, 3% more output if I take carbs. But then again, if it turns into, well, then I can't train as often because my recovery is slower, then does that add up? And it's an interesting sort of thing to look at it over time for sure. What's next for you? I mean, do you have any more running events or anything else coming up?
Well, I'm going to take a vacation in Hawaii and run a marathon just for fun, but I'm going to try to press the issues. But I get to run in the Boston Marathon in 2024, and I'm going to try to qualify again. And, I was only on the Carnivore diet for about 6 months when I qualified for Boston. Mm-hmm. I wonder how much more is available to me if I keep training, keep strength training, keep running, keep eating the right nutrition. I wonder if I can't, beat my time by quite a bit more even. Yeah. You just wonder.
No reason not to find out, in my view. I mean, it sounds great. I mean, I'm not a marathon guy, but I mean, I continually push myself, and at 56, I'm unequivocally stronger now than I was at 50. I mean, I just know that. I've been on Carnivore diet this is my 7th year, and I'm just like I'm continuing to get stronger even though I'm getting older, and it's really kind of a cool thing to do, a cool thing to say. So you said you're not really on the social media, so we won't talk about that. But what, is there any, well, I guess one thing, this isn't because this is running. What about electrolytes, salt electrolytes? Are you adding salt? Are you taking electrolytes? How do you manage that, particularly like around running and training?
Yeah, I'm a heavy sweater, and when it's 83 to 90 degrees running, I mean, I take the element for running, and I usually take two or three of those during a 4-hour session. Okay. Obviously I took electrolytes. I'm using less electrolytes because I don't sweat as much as I used to before I was on Carnivore. I train a little easier and a little longer. And so, I do. But I salt my meat pretty heavily. And so like today, I won't really take any electrolytes because I'm not running today. I'm recovering from my ultra marathon. But mostly I'll take 1 or 2 of those elements. Yeah,
you said you ran an ultra marathon yesterday, right?
Yeah, yesterday.
You look good, man. Yeah, you look like, I mean, how do the legs feel? Are you walking around? Are you super sore, or what's going on with that? A lot of people, man, they can't even walk after one of those things. They're laying around with swollen legs and sticking them in ice baths for 2 or 3 days. And I mean, how do you feel day after running an ultra marathon?
Well, I can tell you the recovery is amazing because, again, a year ago I ran a 4:12 marathon. And it was 4 days. I couldn't walk up and down the stairs. I got out of the bed this morning, and I mean, you get a little bit. Oh, wow, what happened? And then, but I've already been to the grocery store, bought a 9-pound rib roast, and I'm kicking around. But even after the marathon, I was driving home from Dallas, and the bottom half of my body, the legs were, I could tell they were sore and start to atrophy up a little bit, but the rest of me from the waist up, I told my wife, I feel great. I got plenty of energy. I'm not tired, and ran for, I think I did 5 hours and 26 minutes. And, that's hard on a body. And sure it is. I wasn't wiped out.
Yeah, that is pretty amazing. You mentioned that 9-pound rib. I got a 4.5-pound rib rope going right now that I'm going to eat the whole damn thing myself here in a little bit. I'm in a strength building phase right now, and I like it because I'm eating a lot. I like to eat a lot. So I'm a big guy that's always, but I'm 255 pounds right now. So anyway, well, I'll tell you what, this has been really enjoyable. It's good to meet you, Alan. Good luck to you on the next event. Hopefully we'll hear about another marathon time, and maybe you get under sub 330 and, that type of stuff. And I think that's probably within the cards. And thanks for what you're doing and working with the kids and just being another good example for people to see. And it's just what it's going to take. So thank you very much.
So you're telling everybody I'm not crazy.
You're not crazy. No, you're not. Well, if you are, there's a lot of us with you, and that's fine. We're in a good club to be in. All right, guys. Thanks, everybody. We'll see everybody back tomorrow. You guys have a great rest of your day. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye now. Thank you. Hey, folks, it's Dr. ShawnBaker here. If you guys are enjoying these success stories, well, you can become your own success story. You can do that by heading over to Carnivore.diet. You can sign up for a free 30-day trial and get started today. We're looking forward to supporting you. Our community is wonderful, and we'd love to see your success.